Great Lakes Tech Leaders. It's a Discord server where a lot of tech leaders meet up, collaborate, and really bridge the gap between in-person and virtual communication. So if you haven't joined up, go to gltl.rbn.ai and you can join up there, or scan the QR code on the big poster in the back, or one of those cards back there as well, or talk to Mackenzie, who does a great job moderating that. So yeah, go ahead and join up. We'd love to see you there. Real quick, if there's any questions at all during the presentation, just raise your hand and we're going to toss.
All right.
Excuse me.
Thanks to Michigan Meetup, Great Brain Networks for the opportunity tonight to talk about cloud transformation. As he said, as we go through the presentation tonight, let's make this interactive. If you have a question, raise your hand and we'll have the discussion. What are we going to talk about tonight? So tonight's agenda. First, we're going to do some introductions. I'm fortunate to have a few of my colleagues here with me tonight, and some of them you may know from past meetups, or some of them you might just be meeting for the very first time. After that, we're going to talk about think big. What does it mean to think big in terms of digital transformation, cloud adoption? Then we're going to talk specifically about the the AWS Cloud Adoption Framework, what we often refer to as CAF. And then from there, we're going to talk about how AWS can help, and then we'll end with a summary and additional questions and answers. Sound good? All right, quick, before we do introductions, just quick show of hands. Who's currently here from education or still in school? A couple. Who's here from the corporate world doing development? Excellent. All right. Anybody? Any partners here? Partners? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Did I miss anybody? No. All right. Good. We got a good mix of people tonight, and that's important. And the reason that that's important is when we talk about cloud transformation, it's not just about technology. I really look at it as a three-legged stool: people, process, and technology. And it's a balance between all three of those. And we're going to get into those concepts here in a minute. But before we do that, I'd like to turn the audience's attention to the back here. First, I want to introduce Ben Abler. Ben?
Hey everybody, it's great to meet you all. I'm thrilled to be here. This is my first meetup. I've been wanting to get engaged in this for a while now, so I'm planning on coming back whenever I can make it. So I lead our solution architects in the Great Lakes State here for Michigan. We have some super talented people that help our customers on their cloud journey. I'm just really thrilled to be here. Thank you, Dwayne, for coming into town, even though he's a Wisconsin Badger. We can let that go. And oh, sorry, forgot it. So thanks for coming to town. I met Dwayne at reInvent last year and was immediately impressed. So I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben, for being here. Ritesh?
Hi guys, I'm Ritesh Shah. I've done a few of these before, but I'm not as smart as the other three over here from AWS. I always look for feedback, so we've tried to do a mix of hands-on technical presentations. Today is people process. So if you have any feedback of what you would like to hear next time, I would really be, I would appreciate it so we can bring the right content to you guys. Thank you for coming here, by the way.
Ritesh, and last but not least, Matt?
I'm not going to speak. Matt Jorath, Customer Solutions Manager. Dwayne happens to be my boss. And I'm a little bit from a rival area. I'm from Columbus, so let's just be friends. We can talk afterwards. And by the way, I brought candy.
We have full-size candy
for anybody that asks questions throughout the presentation. Thanks for joining. One of the things that we're fortunate to have at AWS is a strong group of peers around us that represent a number of different disciplines, bring a number of different experiences to our customers, and that's really what makes us unique. A little bit about myself. My name is Dwayne Ives. I do reside in the great state of Wisconsin. We won't throw out any Big Ten jokes, or we won't make any jokes right now. But coming to you today with about just over 20 years of experience in IT, with the last 3 of that being at AWS. And so I have the fortune to lead what's referred to as our North Central Customer Solution Management team. And what is Customer Solution Management? Well, Ritesh and Matt are both CSMs on my team. And our job is to help our customers accelerate their journey to the cloud. And everybody's journey to the cloud is a little bit different. And so our job, I often equate it to putting together a puzzle, is to figure out what does that puzzle look like for each of our customers, and then how do we help them put that puzzle together. So whether it's doing net new development, migration out of a data center, modernization of applications, or innovation or experimentation, and everything including that is what we do. We help them accelerate their journey to the cloud, and we do it in the most efficient, help them do it in the most efficient and effective manner possible. All right, let's jump in. So if you're still thinking about why cloud, what is the importance of cloud? Really, if we look at 2023, McKinsey and Amazon both say that the cloud has $1 trillion value. Yes, trillion with a T. And where does that $1 trillion come from? Well, the majority of it comes from what they refer to as rejuvenate. And when we look at rejuvenate, it's around IT cost optimization. How can we get more for the money that we're spending today? Risk reduction. What is your resiliency posture today? What is your data recovery strategy? What is your disaster recovery strategy? And lastly, core application digitalization. So we talk a lot about moving into this digital world, and for every organization, that means something a little bit different. It could mean monetizing the data that you have in your organization. It could mean creating new products, new services. And part of that then trickles over into the $770 billion portfolio of innovation. And innovation is really made up around growth. So growth of new products, new strategies, new go-to-market approaches. It also helps accelerate product development. You know, if you think back to COVID and the ability of the manufacturers to create the vaccines and how quickly they were able to test those and get products to market, you know, a lot of that is what we're talking about. How do we accelerate product to market? And things like hyperscalability. You know, with the introduction of Gen AI, we have to look at how can we hyperscale our environments? How do we be more agile? How do we be more innovative to get a portion of that $1 trillion? Now, what we also know as part of that is the early adopters are winning. So if you work for an organization, or if you're still in school, and you think about, are we an early adopter? Are we a fast follower? Or are we kind of a laggard? Each one of those is important to understand, and each one of those is going to have an impact on this $1 trillion.
I want to share a personal...
Can we get the box, please?
So I know there are a couple students here, Asante, I know personally, and you. When I started, I was never into cloud when I started my career. And like he said, my journey started with like personal use, creating, storing things in S3 bucket and creating a static website. And I was hooked into it, and now I work at Amazon. So, I just want you to be aware that once you get into cloud, it also means a lot to your personal careers, right? And I'm super happy I did that. I didn't know what I was getting into, but it was super rewarding. So just wanted you to know.
Oh, wait, I'm going to add something to that. So, Ritesh is a little modest. So, at AWS, we have, I don't know, something like 16 different certifications, and these are tough ones to get. You're like on your way to getting all of them, right? Okay. So, like he really, so he might not have started in the cloud, but he's like way deep in there. Just to let you know.
Thanks for that. So as we think about cloud adoption, one of the things that we often run into is that success is not guaranteed. And there's a number of different reasons why success is not guaranteed when you're moving to the cloud. When you think about cloud gridlock, IT budgets are pretty tight. Everybody's competing for the same pool of money. So how are you prioritizing within your organization? Or how are you able to shift funds from a traditional run portfolio into an experimentation or an innovation type portfolio? We also see a lot of organizations where the pilots stall. So we often joke that when people start their cloud development, they start it by swiping their credit card. There's a lot of organizations who have systems running on personal accounts. Now, once you start to scale, security gets involved, we generally move those over to corporate accounts. But a lot of cloud projects start with personal credit cards being swiped. And so it can be difficult sometimes to get those pilots off the ground and taking it from something that was just an idea into something that's really an enterprise-grade solution. Then there's also this concept of cloud chaos. And this could be something like the shiny object syndrome. Hey, we heard about Gen AI, we want to go do Gen AI. But a lot of times, in order to do something like Gen AI, you have to have a modern data strategy. Without a modern data strategy, your data is very dispersed. And that then causes more challenges when you're trying to use newer technology like Gen AI. And then the last one's around unrealized benefits. At Amazon, we talk a lot about working backwards, and that is we work backwards from the customer's problems, and we help them solve them. So technology comes second. The customer comes first, understanding the customer problem, and then working backwards from that to actually solve that with technology. And the reason for that is exactly this last one. We want to make sure that the customers are realizing the benefits of their solutions versus driving up cost or getting additional data that there's no value from. So really looking at it from the value proposition of how do we help drive business results? How do we improve business results through the cloud? So one way we do that, excuse me, is what we refer to as the Cloud Adoption Framework, or CAF. So CAF has been leveraged by customers, partners, our field teams. Some keywords in here I want you to remember. Identify and prioritize transformational opportunities. Evaluate and improve cloud readiness. And iteratively evolve your transformation roadmaps. Cloud adoption is not a big bang. We talk a lot about we talk a lot about progress over perfection. What you build today may not be what you use in 6 months. It may not be what you use in 12 months. So how do we build solutions that can be scalable, that can be adaptable, and that we can iteratively evolve over time to meet changing business conditions? Like many things at Amazon, there's been an evolution to CAF, and we're going to talk a little bit here about what CAF is in more detail, but CAF was originated in 2014, and it started with 7 different perspectives. Today we have 6. In 2017, it also went through a revision, and in 2021, we released CAF 3.0. I'm going to take a few minutes here to kind of walk you through initiatives? Are we trying to grow revenue or increase operational efficiency? If we don't have the answers to those questions, we need to pause and really understand why we're adopting cloud and the benefits that it's going to provide our organization. But once we know our business outcomes, then we look at the next area, and this is around getting into the technology transformation domains. So what is the technology we're going to use? What processes are we going to use? What does the organization look like? And what products are we building as a result of this? Now, one of the sayings that I like to use is that when you're moving to the cloud, you need to go in with the mindset of no legacy systems, no legacy mindsets. If you take a process that takes 10 steps in your on-premise environment and you move it to the cloud and you have those same 10 steps, there's really been no value add if you look at just the process in and of itself. So think about that in terms of how are we leveraging technology for automation, for verification, to make things more seamless and automated so we don't have manual processes. Then we look at the 6 foundational capabilities, and we'll dive deeper into these in just a minute. And that's around business, people, governance, platform, security, and operations. Now, as I said before, this isn't a big bang. We start with envision. What are we envisioning that we want to do from a business outcome perspective? We get alignment across the organization to make sure everybody is in alignment with where we're going, what we're going to do, and what we're going to get out of it. Then we look at the launch phase. You could think of launch as, in some cases, it might be an MVP, a minimum viable product, or it might be a full launch of a solution. It just depends on what your business outcomes are. And then the 4th step in this is scale. How do we take what we've built, how do we take the learnings, and how do we scale that across the organization? Because in most organizations, cloud adoption starts in a very small area and then grows from there. And you want to make sure that you have the right governance and parameters in place so that it can scale across the organization to make your cloud adoption as effective and efficient as possible. Now, when we think about business outcomes, again, the four main business outcomes we talked about: reducing business risk, creating new revenue streams, improving ESG performance, and increase operational efficiency. Now, most organizations we work with are probably focused on creating new revenue streams or increasing operational efficiency. A lot of the companies we work with are looking at how do we lower our costs? How do we improve processes? How do we automate? How do we do more with less? There's a labor shortage right now, and so all companies are looking at how can we do this? And so we start with this business outcome before we talk about technology. As we talk about the digital transformation opportunities, we really bucket them into 4 areas, as I mentioned before. Technology. Technology is often looked at in terms of migration or modernization of your infrastructure, your applications, and data. That's a lot of times what spurs a cloud journey or cloud adoption for a customer. They have some type of event, like maybe they need to get out of the data center, or maybe they have a hardware refresh coming up and they don't want those capital expenses, and so they want to move to the cloud instead. Process transformation, organizational transformation, and product transformation. And the one in my mind that doesn't get enough attention is around organizational transformation. And that's because technology is the easy part when it comes to cloud adoption. People and process is the more difficult. So we need to spend as much time, if not twice as much time, talking about the organizational impacts. People often think that going to the cloud is going to reduce jobs. In most cases, it's going to change jobs. It's going to also create new opportunities for new jobs. You know, we see that today with things like Gen AI and building new models. new skills that people never had before, but skills that they now need to acquire to operate into the cloud. But at the same time, simple things like job titles, availability of tools and solutions, all of that needs to change as a result of this transformation. So again, I mentioned this at the beginning, or just a few minutes ago. When we talk about how does this work, how do we put it all together? It's not a one and done. This is something that as a customer, we have to continue to talk about. Sometimes we do it very formally, which we'll talk about more at the end, and sometimes it's a little more informal. But really starting with the 4 steps of envisioning. Identify and prioritize your transformation opportunities. Start with the why. What is the business problem you're trying to solve by moving to the cloud? And then how do we start to align to that? Scale and launch. Let me just take a quick pause there, see if there's any initial questions or reactions to this process, or if there's any questions from online.
I just want to add a comment. You talked a lot about organization, and because there are some students here, I'm super focused on you guys, but a lot of my customers say that, if they were not in cloud, they would not be able to attract talent like you guys, right? And that's a consistent theme. Nobody wants to join where you have legacy mainframe COBOL programs. And I know Ben can share his personal story on that, but everybody I meet. Yes. So cloud is no longer just transforming businesses, but that's where people want to work, right? So
glad you actually went back to the slide, because I have it. Reading through the slide, there's something that sticks out to me, which is it says under technology, a 58% increase in VMs managed per admin. And it took me a while to think about that, but it actually shows like you can do more with less. I think that's what it's showing, is that an admin can actually manage a greater workload just by the nature of the cloud being, all the services in AWS that make administrating those things easier. So not really a question, just wanted to get clarification on that, and I think it makes sense when I talk about it.
And part of the underlying reasons for that is around managed services. So when you adopt AWS native services, a lot of those services are going to be managed on your behalf. So you don't have to worry about the support, the life cycle of those products. That's inherently managed by AWS. Ritesh brought up a good point. I'll get to in just a second, around organization and talent retention, talent attraction is another big challenge. But what a lot of people, whether you're looking to change jobs or you're coming out of school, looking to get a job, what they're looking at is how innovative is that company? What are they doing to challenge technology, to challenge the status quo, to create that digital environment, that digital interaction, right, that we've all known and come to love? In a lot of cases, people's experiences today are driven by companies like Amazon. And so whether you go into financial services, whether you go into manufacturing, people are trying to adopt those ideas, those concepts into their business model to help them attract and retain employees. And within organization, there's a whole separate presentation that we could go through on Cloud Center of Excellence, and that really talks about how do you start to organize your teams internally after you've gone through the Cloud Adoption Framework and said, this is what we want to do. The Cloud Center of Excellence can help you define how you're going to do it, and then how you're going to sustain your cloud adoption over a longer period of time. Throw the box up. Sure.
One follow-up comment is that I like your commentary and organization, and I think if you look at the proliferation of a job with the word ops in it, you have DevOps now, you have FinOps, so you could be like in a financial and you could be doing technology stuff on the cloud. You have SecOps, so you could be doing security stuff on the cloud. I think even if you're in a non-technical position, having the cloud skills gives you some really interesting stuff at machine learning apps. Like the list is endless, and there's just so much potential for non-technical folks to get involved in a lot of this cool stuff too. Someone over there had a question?
Absolutely. Yeah, if you want to toss it up front, Nero. Oh.
Almost killed the camera.
Are we still there? Is it still working?
Yeah, so for this digital transformation step, so how are companies supposed to look into issues? Is it like a process flow where you start with, I don't know, for like technology or organization or product or process, or should we be looking at these different pillars on their own, and how do you combine them? Pretty much, how does a company get most of these steps with these 4 pillars?
I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. Other questions? Yeah.
Hey, good. I'm just going to pile on and say that, I've been at Comerica for 20 years, and for the first 15 years I was there, it was a pretty boring company. Nobody wanted to come there. You talk about mainframe. All our main systems ran on mainframe. We didn't have anything in the cloud. In fact, I would go to meetings with our security team, and if you mentioned cloud, they said no and got up and walked out. But we changed that, and now we're doing the exciting things, and we have a big cloud presence, and we're looking for people that are wanting to be on that journey with us. So.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jim. When I talked to you in the beginning about the $1 trillion opportunity, that's a great example of where they're being forward-thinking, and they're looking at these opportunities on how it's going to change their business, not just today or not just tomorrow, but in the years to come, and how do they do that faster than their competition. All right, so again, we're going to go deeper into these here in a second, but when we talk about the 6 different perspectives, so we think about business, the investment that we're making into the cloud, and how is it going to help drive our digital initiatives and our business outcomes. Again, we always start with the business outcomes and work backwards from that. If you don't know why you're doing something, you need to stop and ask, why are we doing this? What do we hope to get out of it? How do we measure that? We talk about people, and I think we've talked a lot about people, and whether it's around attracting new talent, upskilling the people you have in your organization. Governance. Governance sometimes can be construed as a negative, but really when you think about cloud development and cloud adoption, governance can actually be used as an accelerator. When you think about things like reference architecture, standards, standard processes, standard builds, CI/CD pipelines, that type of governance can help accelerate development, accelerate product development, and help accelerate cloud adoption. The platform, as you look at your organization thinking about what does your platform look like? Most organizations have some type of on-prem footprint, that they need to either integrate with, or they're figuring out how to move that to the cloud. Is there some type of hybrid cloud approach? Are you going to modernize existing workloads? Are you going to just do lift and shift with those workloads? Security. Security is job one for everybody at Amazon, and probably just about for everyone else in this room. And how do we secure our data? How do we secure our systems? How do we secure our IP? So security always has to be front and center of what we do. And security is one of those things where we have a shared responsibility model as you get into the cloud to understand what are you responsible for and what is Amazon responsible for. And then the last thing is around operations. How are these cloud services delivering for your business? How are we measuring those? How are we keeping systems up to date?
So I want to go back to the people perspective. We talked about a lot of companies having legacy mainframe and legacy tech. How does Amazon help upskill the existing staff for cloud?
Internal to Amazon, or?
How does Amazon help customers upskill people and staff?
Yeah, great question. A couple different ways. One is around what we refer to as skill builder. There's a number of different programs online where even if you're not a customer, you can go out and get free hands-on training to be able to upskill yourself in cloud. Another way is around certifications. Certifications are widely known within the cloud industry as being a very positive thing. So if you go apply for a job and they see that you're AWS certified in Solution Architect Associate or Solution Architect Professional, those are all very important things as well. We also just recently introduced or launched the AWS or Amazon Academy. And then another way we do it is through partners. And so we bring in partners that can do formal training programs. But one thing that there is no shortage of is free training. And I would encourage all of you to look into it. There's a lot of opportunities to get upskilled in cloud, whether you want to maintain more of the business 100 level knowledge of the cloud, or if you want to get to the 400 level of the cloud. There's a lot of free training out there available to you. All right, so when we start to dive into the perspectives and the capabilities, there's 47 different capabilities that we talk about inside the CAF. And I'm not going to read all of them, but you can look through them, and you can see the breadth and the depth at which we evaluate your readiness and your ability to accelerate your cloud adoption. When we think about strategy, I know we've talked, business, I know we've talked a lot about that, but what is your strategy? What outcomes are you trying to drive from it? How are you using business insights? When we look at things around governance, how are you leveraging your data? What is your governance around data? When we start to introduce things like Gen AI, ML type tools, a lot of times those tools start to, get outside the databases or the data that you have direct responsibility for, and it gets into enterprise level data analysis. So what type of governance do you have in place to allow that and control that? Platform, security, operations. Again, all 47 of these capabilities are important for cloud adoption. Are they all needed day one? Not necessarily. And do you have to be, on a scale of 1 to 5, do you have to have a maturity level of 5 in each one of these? No, not necessarily. And that's really what the CAF is all about. It's about helping you understand where you're at today and where do you want to go in the future. And we have very prescriptive approaches to help you get from point A to point B. Going back to the 47 capabilities, this is an example of where things generally start and how do we sequence them over the life of your cloud adoption. As you can see, they're not all aligned on the left side. It indicates where you start, where there's some overlap, and then where you can look towards the end. One thing I haven't mentioned, and is probably overdue, is the importance of executive alignment when it comes to cloud adoption. If cloud adoption is viewed as an IT project, you're probably going to have some challenges because people don't understand why you're doing it and what business outcomes you're trying to get from it. So it's important that you have executive level alignment from the CEO, the CFO, the Chief Underwriting Officer, the Chief Innovation Officer, the Chief Information Officer, your lines of business, because you want to make sure it all starts with that business value and what business outcomes are you driving from cloud adoption, and it's not viewed as just a technology project. All right, so how can AWS help? So knowing that the group is a bit diverse, one way that you can do this is through the CAF self-assessment. And the link is available at the end of the presentation. But you can go out and actually do your own Cloud Adoption Framework self-assessment. And it'll assess you across the six perspectives. and the 47 different capabilities. And at the end, it's going to spit out a spider graph for you. But what's most important, in my opinion, is around the recommended actions. Okay, it's just as important to have the results, but in my mind, it's more important to say, how do we go forward? How do we take all this information and how do we go from a score of 1 in terms of business to how do we take that to a 4? And we can be very prescriptive to help you with that, whether it's through programs that we invest in, whether it's through partners that you invest in. There's a lot of opportunities to work together to help you mature over this journey. If you're a little bit further along in your journey, and we see this a lot with some of our enterprise customers, a more formal approach to this is what we refer to as an envisioning workshop. And this is where we can pull in our professional services area, and they have a very structured program to walk you through and help you build a benefits dependency network that helps you align your goals and your outcomes and enabling technology to do so. So again, if you're a little bit further along in your journey and you want more structured help, an envisioning workshop is where you would go for that. Once you're done with the envisioning workshop, the second step is around the alignment workshop. How do we take what we just learned during the envisioning workshop? Now, how do we start to get alignment from the participants, make sure our objectives are clear, make sure our outcomes are clear, and start putting an action plan in place towards launch and towards scale. So as we think about cloud adoption, there's hundreds of offerings. Many of these offerings you can find on the AWS website. A lot of great documentation, a lot of great training out there available to people across many different industries. What's important here is that the best practices that we've built are built on the engagements that we've had with thousands of customers. So these aren't things that just we do. A lot of them we do internally at Amazon as well, but they're things that we've worked with our customers to do that our customers have adopted from us and that they're now using to accelerate their cloud development. Each offering delivers predefined business to technical outcomes. So we obviously know the CAF is going to give you a score. It's going to give you a roadmap for where you want to go. So we'll have some predefined outcomes and some technical outcomes, but we'll also meet you where you're at. If you're in the early stages of your journey, we'll meet you there. If you're more experienced and you want to do things that are more innovative, more experimentation, cutting edge, we'll meet you there as well. And that's what's unique about us, is that we will meet you wherever you are. And then all of this can be combined into a comprehensive solution. And we think back to Envision, I just lost it, alignment, launch, and scale. It's all around building an iterative mindset on how we build products and then how we continue to innovate those products based on customer feedback, based on outcomes that we're hoping to deliver for our business. So where have we done this before? Thousands of customers, some success stories that we have. One I picked because we're in an academic setting today, the University of Auckland in Australia, Met Office, Centauri, and Census. So each of these had a different business reason or business outcome that they were hoping to achieve as part of their cloud adoption. And by leveraging CAF, we were able to help them accelerate their journey to the cloud. And you'll be able to find more information on these on our website as well. So to summarize, where we're at today, as I said before, CAF leverages best practices, lessons learned from thousands of customer engagements. We're constantly looking at the CAF process, the capabilities, the perspectives, the experience that we have with our customers to say, how do we improve this? Things that we did in our team 12 months ago, we do differently today because we have more customer experience and we leverage that. We're always looking to innovate. We're always looking to improve the process. One of our leadership principles is invent and simplify. Invent isn't always inventing a new widget, right? It could be inventing a new process, a new way of doing things. But just as important to that is simplification. How can we take a process that has 100 steps and automate 80 of them to drive additional business results? Mentioned before, this is underpinned by hundreds of AWS offerings that my team can help you with, Ben's team can help you with, our ProServe team can help you with, and we have a number of specialty organizations inside the organization that can help you with those as well. And then lastly, envisioning that target state. Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go? How ready are we to go there? And how do we adopt an agile approach to transformation? We talk a lot about progress over perfection. If you're going to wait for perfection, you're probably never going to get there. But if you think about progress, if you think about building an MVP, if you think about getting feedback, you think about iterative processes, that's the way you want to approach it. And just lastly here, and for more information, there's a link, and we can get it sent out to the group as well, where if you're interested, you can do a CAF assessment. You could go through it just to, if you're in academia, or if you're in the private or public sector, you can go through and do a self-assessment to see where you're at, see what the output is, see what the recommendations are. There's also an ebook and an audio book that talks about CAF more in depth. You're certainly willing to get those. They're free. And then also additional information on the case studies. CAF is one of the foundational things that's important when you think about cloud adoption. That if you don't understand where you want to go, and more importantly, why do you want to go there, that journey is going to be difficult. So the more time you can spend up front defining the why, the business outcomes, the results that we want to drive for that, then you can start to back into how we're going to do it and the benefit that it's going to provide the organization. So I want to thank everybody for their time tonight. And with that, I will pause and open it up for any questions or discussion.
So I just want to add, this is cloud adoption, general cloud adoption. And several years ago, customers were starting in cloud, and that's where they thought about this. Nowadays, customers ask us about AI ML. Hey, there's so much hype about generative AI and ChatGPT. I shouldn't be using that name, but I'm supposed to say Gen AI. But customers ask us, where do you start and how do you go about that journey? So we have tailored CAF very specifically for AI ML. And there are things about ML fluency and things about the data strategy that he talked about. To take a methodical approach for AI ML and not just jump onto that shiny new thing in the market, right? So I just wanted to throw that out. We can send a link to that as well, in addition to the general CAF.
Thank you, Dwayne. It was a very good presentation. I'm an AWS partner, and in the year 2023, a lot of the customers we engage with are already on the cloud, mm-hmm. and we come in to kind of help them, clean up the mess, for lack of a better word. So, do you see a use case where, a company's already in the cloud? Can you kind of introduce this cloud adoption framework, or is it too late? And is there another framework that kind of works if you're already in the cloud and you kind of need to clean house, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. And CAF can certainly be used in that situation as well. The nice thing about CAF is the results are built off of the customer's data, right? How the customer ranks themselves, how do they view themselves? And so being able to have that discussion with them to say, we think we're maybe a 2 or 3, and you combine a few different areas where you're 2 or 3, it really starts to show where they have some opportunities to grow. We also realize that when some companies adopt cloud, they don't know what they don't know. I was a customer. I fully admit, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know why partners were coaching us to do things in a certain way. Hindsight's always 20/20. So technology changes, rationale changes. CAF can help you reset what those expectations are, and it can also help reset or restart certain initiatives. We talked at the beginning about how cloud adoption isn't guaranteed, or the results aren't guaranteed. But being able to jumpstart or restart that stalled migration or that stalled adoption, CAF can certainly help do that.
Yeah, I like the scoring mechanism because it can, if you have a CEO, for example, who's sales and marketing driven, he's not going to understand the technical nuances of this cloud adoption, but if you give him this framework and a score of in order to get the objectives you want, we need to get these scores up, and it just seems like it just all ties together nicely.
And you can build the best platform on AWS, but if you don't have that support from your business units to say, why should I move to the cloud? Why should I build on the cloud? Right? And working backwards from those business outcomes are extremely important, and one of the main reasons we see cloud adoption slow or stall.
The other thing to think about is your first cloud adoption is probably not going to be your only cloud adoption. So we're hot and heavy into our, what we call AWS 2.0 for us, because we went through and we did our 1.0, and we learned so much, and we found things that we would do differently, and a lot of what we did in our early days was lift and shift instead of really taking advantage of the framework. Mm-hmm. And so now that we're going through and redoing it again, and our scores look a lot different coming out of our 1.0 experience than they did when we went in.
Yeah, great point, Jim. And part of that is experience. If you try to do things on your own versus bringing in a partner or bringing in AWS, right? There's a reason you may do one of those 3 things, and sometimes we have to pay for the sins of the past. But the thing that we talked about earlier around progress over perfection, building it in terms of something that can be iterative developed, building it in terms of something that's more of, if you think about microservice development, how do you make your platform more microservice driven so that if you wanted to change out a security component, a logging component, an alerting component, you can do that without having to affect all of the applications in your portfolio. Any questions from the thousands of people online?
Not quite.
Not quite? Okay. Yeah, Mark. Nope. The catch box. There you go.
I was agreeing with Adam over there the whole time I was hearing the presentation. I think, who isn't in the cloud today already? And it sounded like more the perspective of converting newbies from just introducing the cloud. And how much of the market are you really seeing? I saw on the slide that was a 2020 timeframe. It's 10 years. How big is the market? How many are you looking at and freshly started?
Yeah, that's a good question. When we look at cloud adoption and total addressable spend, I want to say that it's certainly less than 10% of the entire total addressable spend available in the U.S. has moved to the cloud. So there's still a huge opportunity for, whether it's net new cloud development or even just migration of existing assets from on-premise data centers into the cloud.
And second question on multi-cloud approaches, because I love to put everything in AWS or Google or Microsoft. What are you doing in that department to make that shift easy?
Ben, any thoughts from an SA perspective?
Yeah, so, you want to grab the box? In terms of multi-cloud, I mean, we have a number of customers that do adopt that approach, where they, kind of from a similar architecture, redundancy thought process, right? Where if they're multi-cloud, then they don't have all their eggs in one basket type of thinking, right? But really, we tend to advise customers they get a lot more benefits from sticking with a singular cloud provider, right? You can start to see economies of scale. There's a lot of integration points that become much more seamless to integrate with your existing infrastructure and teams. So, I mean, we've seen the entire gamut of customers that are implementing. Some customers even have 3 clouds, right? And along with their on-prem environment. So it's a wide range. Our advice is still to this day that you're better off on a singular cloud and making sure you have the resiliency built in across that singular cloud. But we'll obviously work with anyone that wants to continue to do that. Now, we do have, there are some things coming out now about multi-cloud adoption within AWS as well. Ritesh, I don't know if, were you raising your hand? Yeah.
I was just going to add, so from a customer's perspective, right? I have been a customer, I've been an architect, engineer. It is really hard to even build skills and the foundation for one cloud. Thinking about another cloud and repeating that whole thing is really, really hard. So yes, it all sounds fancy. We have, multi-cloud and, we have DR and all of that. A data center is a data center. A lot of our customers just start with like 2 data centers that are so close to one another. The fact that you go to cloud, you're making yourself global and you're resilient, right? Building that capability of all the things that he had 47 capabilities to talk about in CAF. Coming to a certain level where you can scale and mature and sustain, that is hard. Like, I often ask customers, how long is it going to take you to move a couple applications or data center to cloud, one cloud, and then you're going to think of doing that in another one? It's just, and I'm not speaking because I have an AWS badge. It's just, I have been a customer and it is super hard. I'm sure Jim would agree from a Comerica perspective, and I know them, they're my customers. It's really hard to build like fluency and capabilities for multiple clouds. That's what I've seen most common.
Yeah, one of the things, I'll get to you in a second, Adam, that we look at is we try to make sure the customer is educated on why they're making those decisions. Ultimately, it's up to the customer, and we realize that. We want to make sure that the customer is informed before they make that decision. It could be things around, what are the egress costs? Might be things like that they haven't considered. To Ritesh's point, what is it going to take to stand up all these other capabilities in those different cloud providers? But our goal is to give you as much information as we can so that you can make an informed decision. Because we know at the end of the day, you own the decision. We just want to make sure you have all the information that we can provide you. Adam?
We add analogy I like to use is you hear the term putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You don't never want to do that. So the cloud is different. You're putting your eggs in the best basket for your business, right? So whether that's AWS or GCP, that's usually how I guide customers to make that decision. Of course, you can, if you want to run Kubernetes in all 3 clouds, like Kubernetes is like running a cloud within a cloud. So you kind of lose a lot of those benefits of being able to have all those nice integrations with the AWS services by running Kubernetes independently. So that's just what I've seen out in my experience. So, but great question, Mark, and really drove some good conversation there.
I'm going to make a last comment. The way I see it is good points that you make, all of you. It's more about, less about how can I just use the same technology. A lot of times there's an advantage on one cloud technology, and you can't get it replicated. It could be latency. It could be cost. It could be several different things, and you're not getting the benefits if you're all in one. So being able to shift those different technologies, it's a much different atmosphere. And part of that is, as an organization,
you have to make those decisions, right? So when you talk about latency, if it's a matter of 10 milliseconds versus 500 milliseconds, what does that cost to you? What does that cost to operationalize that? And is that important enough, to have them have the same cloud provider? So those are the types of things that you have to think about as a customer and really start to weigh what is the cost, what is the value that we're getting from multiple providers or having different providers.
Well, one of the early on thoughts was, being able to run your workloads in any cloud would give you the advantage of, economy, right? It's cheaper to run this workload in Amazon Cloud than in Azure Cloud or something like that, right? But what we found is that the effort required to do that completely takes away from ever trying to move your workloads that way, right? But we do have specific workloads where we've said, from a niche point of view, these things belong in a different cloud, and we put them there, but we did that as a conscious decision, knowing that we were making a decision that said, ADFS is easier to do in Azure than it is to do somewhere else. So we've made those sort of conscious decisions, but for the I'd say 90% of our things are in the Amazon cloud, 10% that are very niche are in some of the other spaces.
I was just going to I just had a customer talk about latency and multi-cloud.
Keep in mind, that was only one example.
Yeah.
No, and I only have that one
Another
example.
one would be ChatGPT, training off
I think you should
Microsoft
have
platform with ChatGPT. You do that in AWS and apply it to a database.
No, but you got Bedrock.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah.
Another technology.
Yeah.
So, or what about Cosmos, planet-wide database?
Yeah, they've got Aurora and AWS.
Yeah. So, there are different solutions, different implementations, but probably the latest one is the ChatGPT, and if there's so much going on with that. But, I'm not trying to steal your show here.
No, I'll go back to what I said before. It's around we started this talking about business outcomes, right? And if you think about the business outcomes that you want to drive as an organization, you have to figure out what are the technologies that are going to help you drive that business outcome the most effective and efficient manner possible. And again, that's where our job as AWS is to help you, provide you all the information that we can so that you can make that decision. And at the end of the day, again, it's up to you. We at Amazon, we talk about being customer or competitor aware, but not competitor obsessed. So we're aware of what our customer is doing, and there's a lot of strategy behind the scenes that we're not privy to, and I would expect that we'll have more announcements at reInvent, which seems to be pretty common each year on how our technology is evolving. Other questions? If not, I really appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk a little bit about something other than just technology, and that as you think about cloud adoption, thinking about what are the business outcomes that you're trying to drive, and then looking at them through a number of different lenses. And that's, it could be technology, it could be through business, but really working backwards from what your business outcomes are, and then how is technology going to enable you to do that. So again, appreciate everybody coming out tonight, appreciate the dialogue, appreciate Michigan Meetup and Right Brain Networks for having us and giving us this opportunity.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thank you.